Welcome to the Eco and to the ESPN Esports channel. My name is Jacob Wolf, and we are glad to have you. It is a beautiful Monday here in Texas, very bright and sunny here in Austin, and glad to be joining you to start off our week. If you were here earlier today, you saw Coach's Corner with Ardo Cal and the head coach of TSM's Valorant team, and we will be talking tonight about another first-person shooter game, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, near and dear to my heart, and here on the Eco, our weekly Counter-Strike Global Offensive show. We have a lot of special programming for you today. None other than Jason Lake, the co-founder of Complexity Gaming, one of Counter-Strike's longest-standing organizations, and also one of Counter-Strike's longest-standing veterans in the professional field. Jason has many different accolades, but Complexity recently actually took the Blast Trophy in Europe a few weeks ago. They did not qualify for CS Summit, but nonetheless, we are going to be bringing Jason on to talk to us today. We are also going to be talking a little bit about the response around cheating allegations between MIBR and also Chaos. This has been something that's been prevalent for the last couple of weeks and is kind of unfortunately turned into some xenophobia on some sides, which is obviously awful as all types of hate are, but the overall discussion around cheating in Counter-Strike, it's been a big topic for a long time, and it brings back a lot of bad memories now with what's going on between those two teams and sort of the social media bickering that's ensued over the past couple of weeks. But before we get to that, we are going to bring on Jason. Jason Lake, we welcome you to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks a lot for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I know things are a little crazy for me down here in Austin with COVID-19. How are you? You're in Dallas. How are you and your family holding up?
You know, it's been a really surreal year. I think it's been hard for everyone. Comparatively, you know, we're blessed. I feel grateful to have a job. I feel grateful my family's healthy. So, you know, we're blessed and doing well, all things considered. Hope you are too.
Yeah, hanging in there as best I can, taking care of, like we were talking about, baby kitten and pets galore here. But yeah, so I wanted to bring you on to this show to talk a little bit about CS and profitability, something that's been a huge discussion over the past couple of months, particularly with ESL Pro League Season 11 and Flashpoint both concluding a few months ago, and looking ahead at ESL Pro League Season 12. But first, I want to ask a couple of things that a lot of people have been talking about is offline events and what that looks like. Seems that, like, you know, looking at ESL Pro League Season 11, sort of hopefully that it will be offline. We got a few months up until coming up to that. And then the major, which, you know, I've seen various takes about whether or not the major will actually happen. I've seen a team executive say they feel like them and their players are playing for absolutely nothing. The fact that the major may not happen at all, and we may just punt to 2021. How do you feel about the likelihood of offline events happening in the future in the next coming months, given the situation with Corona?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously been what we call in esports a suboptimal situation this year. On one side of the coin, we're really blessed that we can still compete. We have the ability to play from home, where traditional sports have really been left out in the cold and they've been damaged severely. So that's the good side, right? The bad side is there's nothing that can replace the online events, the crowd, the pressure, the drama, the LAN environment with no internet problems, right? With proper admins, you know, right next to the team. There's nothing that can replace it. You know, I really enjoy being able to travel around the world and talk to the players and the team owners and the fans and the tournament organizers. And it's one of the parts of my job. You know, travel can be difficult, but it's one of the parts of my job that I do enjoy. And, you know, I had a trip to Malta canceled. I had a trip to Moscow canceled. I had a trip to Rio canceled. And it's each one you're just like, man, like I really wanted to go. You know, I really wanted to go to Rio and meet these passionate fans. And I was really looking forward to it. You know, I think we need to be realistic looking at the rest of 2020. I'm generally a cup half full type person, and I like thinking positively, and I like planning for positive outcomes. But if we follow where this thing has been going, it might be difficult, right? I know they were trying to maybe do something in August, ESL, and of course we all really hope that they can get that done. And then you read the news a couple days later, European Union is not going to allow Americans in. So how's that going to work? You know, you read about the outbreaks in Brazil It's heartbreaking. And, so how is that going to work? I think we should set proper expectations that if we get any real LAN events in 2020, it's going to be a big blessing, but I don't know that we should expect it. Let's hope for the best. Let's plan for the best, but let's not set ourselves up for huge disappointment either.
One thing with a lot of these events being canceled, especially for the big popular teams in esports, is there's a lot of revenue loss that comes at the end of that. I've talked to a couple different Counter-Strike executives about sticker money and sort of how much that a major sticker supplements their profit loss margin. For you, I mean, how far back do you think COVID has set, specifically Counter-Strike teams, but teams of all forms, from a revenue perspective?
I think, again, the esports sector is blessed, relatively speaking. When you look at traditional sports and how they sell sponsorships and branding at their stadiums and different things, they don't necessarily have as strong of digital footprint that esports organizations do. So I think we're better off than some other competitive sports and entertainment, but it's definitely difficult when an organization's on the verge of signing a substantial sponsorship and something like this happens. Things, best case, can get delayed because companies are trying to figure out the new normal or whatever. They're trying to figure out their budgets. They're trying to figure out their path forward. So they're like, whoa, just hold on a minute. Like, we're still interested, but hold on. Well, okay, hold on. Does that mean 1 month, 2 months, a year? So I know that there's been organizations like ours that have had exciting deals delayed, and hopefully not fatally, but we'll see. And the revenue, I think, in esports is going to suffer this year. I think it's impossible not to. The global economy is, borderline suffering from financial devastation right now, and so many people are suffering, and so many businesses are suffering, and so many people are laid off. I think it would be beyond naive to expect that we wouldn't be impacted. Again, being cup half full, I believe that we're impacted less, and to a lesser percentage from what I'm seeing and hearing, than a lot of other traditional sports that might demand much higher stickers. I've talked about this on a couple interviews. You hate to come across like you're gloating when so many people are suffering and the world is in such a bad place.
Yep.
So I say this very carefully, but esports has actually had some benefit from the current circumstances. We've had a great deal of exposure that we might not have otherwise gained. We've, got a lot of attention of marketing managers and things that are now like, well, we don't have this sport or that sport. Like, what am I going to do? I'm charged in the sporting area of our company.
Mm-hmm.
So just trying to be more, positive without gloating at the expense of others. I think esports has had some positive things come out of this, and we need to stay positive and remember that people are suffering, but continue to do our best for our community and our companies and our investors and our fans and our players and the people that rely on jobs at our companies. And it's a really difficult time to stay positive some days, but there's a lot of exciting and positive things in esports right now. So,
when you look at the state of Counter-Strike's team's profit and loss margins, where do you think like the average Counter-Strike team stands right now?
I think Counter-Strike's difficult right now. Generally speaking, the teams that have budgets that want to be competitive have to spend a good amount more than the team generally generates in terms of revenue for the organization. The players rightfully have very large salaries, and a lot of that is due to the competitiveness of the team owners, where I want to beat Carlos and Carlos wants to, G2, Carlos wants to be Sam and Fnatic, and on and on and on. Not saying the players don't deserve it. You deserve what the marketplace will pay you when you're the best in the world. So they do deserve it. But that competitiveness and the amount of organizations that see value in Counter-Strike and love the Counter-Strike community has driven costs up for sure. And, that makes it difficult to directly profit, I guess you could say, from a Counter-Strike division. But a lot of us, I think, that love Counter-Strike and love the Counter-Strike ecosystem see a bigger picture. We're trying to build brands that will be enduring for decades. And we want to build those fan bases. We want to establish that legacy and establish that history. And even after all these years, we're still in a certain amount of startup mode to where we might not be profitable, but we believe we're investing in the future. We're investing in our fan bases. We're investing in our metrics. We're investing in the prestige of our brand so that we can sell that as more and more eyeballs come online and we find new ways to monetize those eyeballs.
There was a lot of discussion around what makes a Counter-Strike team profitable at the beginning of this year. There were kind of two different lines of thought on that. There was the Flashpoint and Associated Teams line of thought. There was the ESL Pro League and Associated Teams line of thought. Then some people in the middle that I guess just didn't want to answer that question too much, that didn't side with either side. In terms of the, looking back now a couple of months after participating in ESL Pro League and in the case of Complexity, do you think, do you believe more now that a path to profitability is possible after participating in EPL for a season, or do you think COVID?
Oh yeah.
Window?
No, absolutely. I think COVID's going to delay it. I think projections need to be moved back on the spreadsheets in terms of what month, those break evens are coming. But I'm really bullish on esports. I'm bullish on Counter-Strike. I'm very confident that we can get to break even and then to profitability. There might be different models. You got the Flashpoint model, you got the ESL based model. And I think that's also a good thing, right? Competition spurs on excellence. It spurs on progress. It spurs on people to work harder and to be more creative. And if there was one global Counter-Strike league to rule them all, that could possibly be, less than ideal. And maybe someday we'll get there. But the current status of where our ecosystem growth is in Counter-Strike, I'm happy that there's different leagues and operators and things around the world. Getting to profitability means that we need to figure out better ways of monetizing the fan base. If you read the studies on how much like an average NFL fan brings to the league a year versus how much an average esport fan brings in a year, it's quite staggering. And that's not necessarily to suggest that our fans are less passionate or our fans don't have the same, disposable income. That's to suggest we haven't discovered proper ways of monetizing that. And there's multiple reasons in different esports why that might be. In Counter-Strike specifically, I think it can be challenging as we're very grateful to have Valve involved, and Valve's involvement through the major system and really updating the game a lot more lately has been very appreciated. But you've got the tournament organizers, you've got Valve developer, you've got the teams, you've got different parts of the ecosystem, each trying to make a profit from their efforts in the industry. And until we kind of come alongside each other, similar to kind of what the stickers are at the major, and figure out more ways like, hey, I could tell you from just reading messages each day and trying to keep up with the flurry of messages I get on a daily basis on my Instagram. It's really funny. Like I only have 2,000, 3,000 followers, but I managed to get like 100, 200 messages a day. And I try to get through them all each night. There's passionate fans in Counter-Strike. They want to buy our jerseys. They want to buy in-game items. They want to contribute to the ecosystem with the money they have, similar to NFL fans, NBA fans, MLB fans. But we haven't offered them enough ways to do that. It's inherent, and it's our obligation as leaders in the ecosystem, as the business people in the ecosystem, to offer viable ways for our fans to support us, to support the players, to support what we're trying to do. And I think there's plans in the work. I think that's constantly going to be developing. But it's something that we haven't come far enough along. And, this is going to delay things, of course, but I'm optimistic for the future.
I actually want to ask you this because I find your perspective unique, and I'll explain why as sort of someone who reported on all this. You were in a unique position in the sense that when you and I first met, there were a lot of venture capitalists and other family offices, hedge funds, et cetera, coming into esports, pouring money into player salaries. And Complexity, actually, you were probably in the third wave of people who took on investment relatively. If we look at it, into 2015 is the beginning, and then there's another one there in 16, 17. And then, yeah, you got it in early spring, summer 2017. But you've been here for a long time in the industry. And I remember how flabbergasted people were when we actually reported that the SK Gaming org would be signing those Luminosity players for $10,000 a month. People were blown away about that in the summer of 2016. as a bystander, how do you think we got to the point where Counter-Strike players are worth so much money on a monthly basis? Oh, you're muted, by the way. Or push talk? Still can't hear you.
There we go. My bad.
Yeah.
I was saying hi to Twitch chat and I didn't click back over to Discord. It's an old man boomer noob mistake. No, I think it's a great question. I think I alluded to one of them, which is just there has been a lot of investment pumped into this team, and the team owners are very competitive. When you go out and get that investment, part of the agreement you have is you're going to build a compelling, exciting brand with lots of fans. How do you do that? Well, one of the ways you do that is win. So now I've got X millions of dollars for my investors. I need to go spend it on a compelling team, because if I have to go in my boardroom with these investors that have trusted me with their capital and my team is horrible, they're going to be asking why, and I'm going to be sweating, right? So a lot of that has gone on. That's raised player salaries. And I think, it would be unfair not to credit the fan base. The reason Counter-Strike is so desired, the reason Counter-Strike has done very well for so long is the fan base. When you turn on Twitch and you go through what top games are, like Counter-Strike, when the tournaments and things are going, it's one of the very best esports in the world, where you could put 100, 200 more 1,000 people watching these matches from all corners of the world. There's value in that, and people realize there's value in that. And like us, my team, just over a week ago, you want to be on the final stage, right? You want to be in the championship, and there's value in that. So I think as the ecosystem has grown and the investment has grown, and the team owners, as always, are competitive, it's driven player salaries because we want to win. I also remember when 10,000 a month sounded like a lot of money. It's like, holy smokes, now it's tripled or more for good players. So yeah, it's a different world. If you would have told me to be $1 million buyouts a few years ago, I would have probably choked on my coffee. But here we are, and I'm glad we're here. Right? It is difficult. We need to get to profitability. We need to create a sustainable business model out of this for everyone's benefit. There needs to be give and take across the ecosystem. But I'm glad we're here, right? Like, I'm so happy players are making this kind of money. I'm so happy we have this many viewers. I'm so happy I have a hard time getting to sleep at night because I have so many Instagram messages. Like, this is awesome. This is what we've all worked so hard for. And yes, there's going to be challenges. And then once we figure out how to monetize it, we're making all kinds of money. There's going to be different challenges, right? And there's always going to be challenges. I'm optimistic. I'm so happy, and I feel so blessed to be in this ecosystem. And we're going to figure it out. We're going to keep kicking ass.
You have been through some experiences of bubbles popping in esports, or time, notably CGS, Complexity, one of the few teams that has sort of weathered that storm and stuck around after all these years. Does it feel like we're in one now?
Yes, I've been saying for a while now that I think we're in a bubble, but there's different kinds of bubbles. Some bubbles pop. That was the CGS bubbles. Other bubbles just need to deflate a little bit. I think there was too big a rush for investment that was so excited to be in our ecosystem, so excited to be involved with what we're doing for damn good reason. The money wasn't always, in my personal opinion, everyone can have opinion, spent in the best ways. And I think some investors are going to tire. They're not going to have the stamina. They're not going to realize this is a marathon. This isn't a company you invest in and then you flip for 10x like a Silicon Valley tech startup app or something. They need patience. They need endurance. They need to understand that this is a marathon. And I don't know that all the investors in the space are. So I personally expect and I've been saying this before 2020, that there's going to be a contraction in some of these things. We're going to see some orgs contract or go out of business, and not everyone is going to make it, but it's not the kind of bubble that's going to pop. I think esports is far too diversified. It's far too globalized. The number of eyeballs we could drive from around the world is far too large for it to just pop. But I do believe there's going to be a correction, and I do believe that the current, global pandemic is only going to accelerate that, unfortunately, and or fortunately, depending on whether you consider a correction healthy for the ecosystem and the growth to sustainability. But yeah, I do think we're in a bit of a bubble.
The interesting thing about, and for those unfamiliar, your team is owned by the Jones family that own the Cowboys, and the Goff family, who are a wealthy real estate family based in Dallas-Fort Worth. Something that I found interesting about your deal compared to some of the way other top teams are operating right now, is that you made the decision to sell majority stake, if I am correct, at the time that you did it. And obviously, this is almost like building a part of the sports portfolio that it will continually be funded over time. You're not going to always have to go raise rounds over and over and over again. But there is the inverse from a personal gain perspective, where you could have ended up like some of these other teams that do that, and one day Jason Lake is a close to worth $500,000 or $100 million, $50 million, because that valuation number goes through the roof, and then you cash out and you walk away. Why did you make that decision, and sort of how has that affected the way that you manage your business now versus have you done the other?
I think that's a really great question. I spent a good probably 2 years doing a ton of research, and it was both a really stressful time for me and a really exhilarating time because, man, I met Elon Musk. I met several NFL owners, and the conversations I get to have, like, when you're in business and you're trying to build your company, you always hope that you might get in rooms like that, but to actually get in rooms like that, I was like, wow, it's crazy. But being my age, I think, I try to have a longer term perspective. And it was really important to me and to Jason Bass, my partner at the time, that we find the right group for us. And I don't know if that sounds corny, but complexity is like a third child to me, sincerely. And people that know me understand that. I wanted throughout this journey to build a multi-generational billion-dollar sports property in complexity. And I wanted something when my kids grew up that they could be really proud of and be like, my dad founded Complexity Gaming. People will be like, what? Like, for real? Like, my dad founded the Lakers or whatever. And when I met Travis Goff and I had the opportunity and the honor to meet the Jones family and the Goff family, I knew instantly that this was the group for us, and everything that they had as far as infrastructure and philosophy and just who they were. I knew that this was the way forward, and they own lots of companies, and for multiple reasons. Number one, because they're smart. They need to have majority control, because if they're going to align it with their brand pretty closely, and they're going to put you on their property, and they're going to put their support behind you. And they honestly only had known me a few months. You need control, and it's just smart. And yes, I know other owners have definitely made more money in this business than me. I promise you that. And I want to take care of my family very badly. And I want to, hope that my efforts in this industry can pay off in a financial way. But without getting too sappy, I also believe there's more to life than money.
Yep.
There's art, and there's joy, and there's something tangible about building something that lasts. And I don't know. It's definitely an old man being cheesy a little bit. I'm not trying to say I don't want to financially secure my family's future, because I do, and they take good care of me. Will I be here forever? I don't know. That's at their discretion, and we'll see. I think there are other opportunities for me in the space, should they, in their discretion, want to go a different direction. And I would always wish this group the very, very best. Like I said, this is like a third child to me. And if you got to send them off to college, then it's not like you're not going to love them anymore. But yeah, that's why we ended up with the Jones and Goff families owning majority. I never regretted that. It was a very intentional decision on my part. It's an utter honor being in business with them and being associated with them and their other companies. And that's a good question.
I want to end on this. We appreciate you taking the time. I know you have some other commitments after this. You did mention earlier that, and I think we all kind of feel this, that like, while this is a big moment for esports, it feels bad to say that when there's so many people being personally affected in the world by COVID-19. But it is, while there are certain businesses that are failing or will fail at the hands of COVID, and probably would have eventually anyway, there will also be revenue opportunities that will come of this after the pandemic is over. That more people have had exposure to esports because, again, like you mentioned, people that work in advertising agencies or are marketing parts of big companies are trying to look for somewhere to spend their advertising money on something effective, and that is now esports, or will be esports. In terms of what those revenue opportunities are, what do you predict when the pandemic is over, advertising and revenue looks like for esports at large?
I mean, that's a good question, but certainly a broad one. I think, as I said earlier, that the current situation is going to slow that revenue down. I think that's going to accelerate the deflation of the bubble that we're in, because certain teams that were so dependent on investment might have a harder time finding investment in the new normal. I think we have to stick to what we were doing as far as figuring out media rights, figuring out bigger and better sponsorships with blue chip companies. How can we create programs to integrate with them? How can each brand create narratives that align with different companies to where you can create multi-year partnerships to drive revenue that is growing steadily, and we're not constantly trying to go back to the sales table every 12 months. I think it's important that developers work alongside event organizers and teams and players to distribute the revenue streams from esports in a way where everyone wins. A lot of times the developers have so much control, where if they're not going to work with you to put your logo in a game where they have another product to sell, and now you're getting rev share off your logo on a Rocket League car or a weapon skin or whatever it is, and continually insert those products into the game in a meaningful way, we're not going to be able to grow and take advantage of the eyeballs that we have and people that want to support our organizations, people that want to spend their discretionary income but don't have enough options to do so. So I think we're going to continue to see these different ideas that we're already working on over the next couple of years. I think media rights are going to be huge. I think in-game items are going to continue to be huge. I think more and more sponsorships that are really engaged with the partner far beyond just a jersey or a logo slap. You're going to start to see leading companies, and already are, with automobiles and different companies that want to be involved in esports in a deeper way than just like buying a banner ad on a website. These are the types of things that we're going to continue to develop that are going to get us to break even. The next question is, where's the real money going to be? And I'm going to be really honest with you. I spent a lot of time thinking about this. We have a huge global audience, and one of the key demographics for marketers and advertisers, such passionate fan bases. We're missing something. I don't know what it is. And I pray all the time, man. I'm like, there is a key and there is a lock, and I need to find them both, because I know we're missing something as an esports industry that could take us to a completely different level. Some people say it's gambling, and there's revenue to be made there. Other people say it's some kind of technology play where if we can integrate with AI or VR or whatever, and then I don't know what it is. And as soon as I do know what it is, that's going to be a really good day. There's a lock and there's a key, and we have to find them both, because we have something really special in esports, and getting to break even isn't good enough. We got to go out and make a lot of money for the people that devoted their lives to this space, to provide better and better content for the fans in this space, to continue raising player salaries and quality of life. We need to better financially educate our players and set them up for career paths that last for generations. So this isn't just some one-off. This isn't just an offshoot. We haven't been in mom's basement for a very long time. Now it's time to grow up, and we need to figure out how to properly monetize this thing. And I know there's people smarter than me that spend a lot of time thinking about this, and my team at Complexity and I sure as hell do. So it's really exciting for the future, Jacob, and we're going to get it figured out.
And we appreciate you coming onto the show. Thank you so much. Best of luck with everything. I know you have some stuff to go run and do after this on Twitch. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll have you back.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and thank you for doing a Counter-Strike show.
Of course.
Let's go.
So we'll be right back. I want to talk a little bit about the chaos and MIBR cheating allegation situation. If you stay with us here on the ESPN Esports Twitch channel, we'll be right back. Back to the Eco. Thank you so much to Jason Lake for joining us. It's really rare to see a team owner open up like that. I think that generally, I think it speaks to both Jason's honesty as a person and also sort of the rapport that we built together. If anyone wants to go find, I wrote a story on him, a couple different stories on him actually in 2018 around the Face It Major when Complexity had a lot of Counter-Strike success, and then also earlier that year, I went to Dallas and spent some time with him and the Goffs and the Joneses, and wrote a story about Dallas-Fort Worth Esports and of all the organizations they have been able to survive. But it's really rare to see someone open up like that, so I really appreciate his honesty. I think a lot of people in esports, team owners especially, feel very uncomfortable talking about profitability because it's, for whatever reason, embarrassing to admit that profits aren't necessarily there in some instances, but it's an ongoing discussion in Counter-Strike. I think it's incredibly important, especially in a game where a franchise system doesn't exist. So I appreciate him coming on the show and being as honest and sincere as he was. So thank you so much to Jason. With that said, though, I want to talk about something a little different. The allegations of cheating that are going on by MIBR against Chaos. This has been a thing that we talked about a little bit last week. Presumably, I thought that it would go away. People accuse each other of cheating all the time, but now it's gotten to a place where it's particularly messy. For whatever reason, I think that it's undeniable the influence that particularly MIBR and Fallen and the rest of that team have in Brazil. They are national icons, often to very much positive benefit, and the fact that they've given back a lot to their country and provided investment into the Brazilian Counter-Strike team and sort of foster that. We've talked about that before on this show. But because that fan base is so sort of galvanized, that we saw a lot of people start attacking the Chaos Esports Club players who were accused of cheating several weeks ago. And to a point where this has like now become like a Brazilian fans thing, and it sort of becomes xenophobic in a way, which is really unfortunate and gross. So I want to talk about both sides of this. I want to talk about the side about accusing of cheating and sort of veteran players being uncomfortable in their position. And then I want to talk about the other side of this, which is the hate, which needs to stop also. The xenophobic hate that needs to stop also. So first, I want to talk a little bit about the actual allegations. I think that cheating has always been something in CS far back before even I was in this in the esports scene. It's a game that requires a lot of high-level skill. I don't think anyone would deny that. And yeah, we haven't really found, like, there's a presumed thought that age certainly has something to do with it. And the players that were accused of cheating on Chaos, the substitutes that were playing in the event, the RMR event, were young, really young. They were 16-year-olds. And it sucks to see that something couldn't have even worked out. I think that the Counter-Strike community, more now than ever, players are able to get in touch with each other really easily, and there's a lot of Discords and other servers where people go and talk. The fact that it even reached that point in the first place is pretty unacceptable, and I think that it's on the organizer of those events to defend those players in somewhat a regard, right? Like, almost every single tournament in Counter-Strike uses ESEA or Face It. Both are very renowned for their anti-cheat client, so even the ability to cheat on them is pretty low. And so I was shocked not to see either stand up in the case of this, whichever were running on the tournament a few weeks ago. And also, like, a little bit for shame on Fallen and the other players at MIBR who said this. It's just really disgusting, right? Like, there were people that I remember back in 2016 on that Luminosity SK Gaming run that were accusing Fallen of this. And he didn't deserve that either. And it got really gross back then. You would think that, and we've had him on the show, and I respect him immensely. You would think, though, that that experience would prevent him or make him think twice before saying that about someone else. So I'm disappointed that no one sort of stood up for those players, other than their own organization. And Tarek and Fallen were able to use their influence to, I guess, rally this to the point where a 16-year-old is getting death threats. It's really gross. The other part of this is sort of the xenophobic xenophobic hate part of this, which also needs to go away. Counter-Strike is inherently nationalistic. It's part of what the game's built on, and a lot of times that's a good thing, right? I was at the Boston Major when Cloud9 won, and the overall sense that an American team had finally won an event was incredible, right? Like there was so much pride there and it reminds me almost of like the Olympics or the World Cup, right? Like that's awesome. Not a lot of esports games have that because a lot of esports teams, whether League of Legends or Dota, wherever it may be, oftentimes are mixed nationality because that's the way you build the best teams in those games. That's not the case in Counter-Strike. Usually language actually means a lot. And so we see teams like Astralis and Ninjas and Pajamas and Fnatic who build these dynasties with players from the same national background. And that's great because it adds another layer to sort of this like discussion and what marketing can be in esports in a way that no other game does. Where that's turned really bad, though, is the fact that, yes, there are a lot of Brazilian fans who attacked Leaf and were really strong and certainly overwhelming. But generalizing in all senses is terrible. And that's what we've seen a lot of from top commentators in this space, from other people in the space, that the Brazilian fans, which is really gross, I guess, to put it that way, rather than certain individuals, are bad people. And that's just not true. So condemn the xenophobia, please, and stand up against that, because that's certainly not fair to anyone anyway. Because I'm sure there are many Brazilian fans, maybe who didn't even tweet, who just want to watch good Counter-Strike. And it's unfortunate to see that that was part of the discussion also. So we'll leave you on that. Point A, stand up for people, and please ask the tournament organizers to stand up for people who are accused of cheating if they're actually not cheating, or expose them if they are and punish them appropriately. And then also just don't generalize. It's really terrible. So we'll leave you on that. Thank you again for Jason joining us for the show. We will be back next week. Looking to line up some guests now. So we appreciate you tuning in every single Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific, here on the ESPN Esports channel on Twitch, on Twitter, YouTube, and ESPN app. We appreciate you joining us. We'll be back next week. Thanks for joining us. Later.